Hello, everyone. It's me, Lena, and
Jordan.
And we are
Back.
still sitting here. We just wanted to cut it into two pieces. We're still in the same clothes. We didn't get up or anything. We just back like we never left. So
that way, you can still listen to these while you're on a drive.
Yeah.
Between your sessions and not feel like, oh my gosh, I'm missing so much.
Yes. And this is such an important episode because it's a lot. It's a lot.
It is. So it's the same day.
I have a question.
I don't know why, but I'm scared, but okay.
No. So in front of everyone, can you commit to us having burritos for dinner tonight?
I guess.
Okay, cool. That's the only thing that's been on my mind for the past interim since we ended the last episode and started this one. So just want to make sure. Okay, now we can get to business.
Okay.
So last episode we talked about direct staff and what questions would be great to ask as you're looking for a new job. This time we're going more into BCBAs. What is, new BCBAs, or maybe you're looking for another place, things like that. Questions that we think are extremely important to ask so you know what you're signing up for. I didn't mention this in the last one, but I think this applies to both. Sorry, I'm just jumping right in. As a mama, I think it's important to kind of make sure that you know how the job is going to align with your life. So for me, I know that something that has been more of a priority as I've become a mom, like knowing what I know I have the capacity to do as far as time commitment.
That's fair.
Yeah, because some places end very, very late. Like people are in home till 8 o'clock. That's just not where I'm at, because then I would literally never see my child. So that's one thing that I've been kind of like more so really honing in on is like, what is realistic for me as far as a start time and as far as an end time based on my family and how I prioritize my time with them. So that's one that I kind of just was thinking about that I needed to attach to the last episode too, because we have had one-to-one staff that are also moms, and it's different than our one-to-one staff that are college students. And maybe sometimes them realizing that like they need to adjust their schedule because of the fact that they need to pick up their child or things like that. So anyways, that's just right off the bat a question that I feel is important for both direct staff and also BCBAs.
Yeah, and I think it is a really good point, because as a BCBA, there is a lot of responsibility on our shoulders. Mm-hmm. And, we carry that weight with our heads held high because we're making a difference. But we also know our limits, and we also, or at least should know our limits, but we also know what burnout is, what it looks like. And we know that we need to be in the best place that we can be mentally, physically, emotionally, in order to be the best version of ourselves for who we serve and who we support. So, having a work-life balance is huge. I even think that's a really good question, that we haven't even discussed, but I think it's a really good question to ask your potential employer. Like, how do they foster or help or work with you to create that work-life balance that you're talking about?
Yes, we so just life. We just were looking into just different things again as we're just going through, trying to figure out what's best for our family. I remember we were talking to a company, and I was kind of asking one of the BCBAs, like, how do you make sure that like there is good work-life balance, like he was asking. And this poor BCBA, I feel like she couldn't really give us an answer. And at the time, we knew that she was like the only BCBA on the premises, and there was like, I don't know,
40 kids or something.
40 kids. So I wasn't really convinced by her answer, because I feel like she looked like she was like trying to figure out how to even answer it. So I think that is something to prioritize. One thing she said that I think is true is if we aren't fulfilling that whole balance, then yeah, our staff is going to fill it and everyone underneath us is going to fill it as well. So yeah, I think it's something that we really have to prioritize and make sure that, you know, I think it's part of quality assurance too.
Yeah, I think it is. It's a huge point. You know, in the last episode, I did say that I end up being in a lot of interviews. It's actually a question that I ask everybody that interviews, which is odd because I never got asked that sort of question in the field at all, but I ask, and it usually throws people off in the sense of, I've never been asked that before. It's like, well, yeah, the job is hard. Mm-hmm. How do you have a work-life balance? Do you have something in place to prevent you from burning out? I mean, as a BCBA, I don't want my staff to be burning out all of the time because all they want to do is work. They don't want to take the time for themselves, or they don't have any mechanisms or strategies to use to feel like relaxed or separated from what it is that they do every day. So asking that question's been something for about at least a year now. I've been asking in interviews. Had some really unique answers, but that I definitely won't share.
Yeah,
but
TMI.
But I think it's good because it highlights what it is that we do every day, but it also highlights whether or not somebody has thought through what it means to give yourself to others all day long when you're working with other kids. And some of our kids or our clients can have a lot of needs, and we're the ones that are helping to fulfill them in the most appropriate ways, which is draining.
So shout out to anyone that like your job is to serve others, whether
Mm-hmm.
it be a waitress, a doctor, a nurse, a caregiver, anything and in between that. Just, make sure you take care of yourself.
Yeah. Can't do the best for others if you haven't done the best for yourself first.
Yeah.
And there is no shame in that either. Like if your staff wants you there just to be present, then sure. But that I can tell you right now firsthand that is not how I want to treat my time with the staff. I want to be there not only present, but I want to be effective. And I don't want that just for my staff. I want that for the clients that we're working with together. Because in that moment, all three of us sitting there are the team.
Yep.
That is the client, the staff, and myself. We're the team that are working to make a difference. And if I'm not in my best position, I feel like I'm going to be letting them down.
Absolutely. Okay, next. This is a pretty typical one. What's billable expectation?
Yeah, you should definitely ask that. Like, obviously, there is a, standard that has to be there to some degree. Yep. Like, you can't be a BCBA and just never see your clients, right? But you also can't be a BCBA and have this unrealistic expectation of like, I need my BCBAs to bill 40 hours a week, where that means that there is a client attached to every hour that you are working. That's just almost impossible.
Mm-mm. Can't make materials.
Can't be effective.
You can't do anything actually.
Yeah.
You can't breathe. And you can't, I'm just kidding.
Hopefully you can breathe. But that billable expectation, weekly or monthly or whatever it is, I've seen them as high as like 35, which I think is definitely, it's all doable. Like they're all doable. And I've never seen anyone say 40, but 35 is rough.
Yeah.
That's really high, considering all the other things that a BCBA has to do.
There's a lot.
So it being high like that, you can.
Even just putting together your schedule for the week.
Yeah, it can take a little bit of time.
Coordinating with parents to meet, returning emails. If you supervise RBTs or BCBA to Bs and you need to fill out some forms for them. Just a lot of stuff that'd be going on outside of just that 40 hours. That's already.
Yeah. So I think just having an understanding of what you're going to be able to do, which also means that you have to have a good understanding or at least ask follow-up questions on the job description. Mm-hmm. Because if your job description is just 2 pages long in itself, and then you have a billable standard or expectation of like 35 hours, but in that 35 hours, you have to do all those things on the job description, which usually
start highlighting like, so when am I supposed to do this?
Yeah, but usually the job description is just the highlights of what it is that you're supposed to do. They're just the bullet points. There's more that goes into that and being a BCBA. And so for those of you that are thinking about being a BCBA and you see that, oh, like BCBAs have more flexibility than the RBTs, or all they do is like sit behind their computer and like make adjustments in sessions and overlap. There is a long list behind all of that.
But also, if you're not like a clinic model and you got drive time in between all that,
you
got clients that are 30 minutes away, 40 minutes away.
It can get really hard to meet that expectation. So I think it's good to know what that is, and what the potential employer is expecting you to be able to do. Mm-hmm. And for those that are, RBTs and then they just passed their exam, now BCBAs, and they're switching into that role, you do need to know that there is a big difference between the two. Not even just in terms of how you manage your time, but also conceptually what you have to think about in order to be successful at that next level. Thinking about the time that you have to spend between driving. Yeah, I'm just going to stack all my sessions together. Well, if you have to drive, you can't do that. Like you're not going to have that much time to be able to do everything that you're thinking that you can do. You also have to think about, those debriefing sessions or parent consultations and all those things that go into it that add into your schedule.
Or if your staff has a question on the way out of the house and you need to answer it because that's your job.
Yep. And you spend 15 minutes answering it. Gonna make you late for the next
billable.
One. Those things don't count.
But it is good quality. So
yeah, like there is a difference between, quality as well as what's going to be clinically effective and beneficial versus just meeting a number. And so, having worked with both, you see that there are people that are really good at hitting that as numbers, but any of those extracurricular stuff that go outside of that need to be done don't get done.
And staff can feel that.
And staff can definitely tell. Then there's the other side of things too, where somebody is highly clinical and they spend a lot of time, more time than they need to, making sure that things are going as smooth as they can, and then miss their billable a lot because of the amount of time that they spend making sure that every little detail is right. So there is like a pendulum here that it can swing either side, but you want to find some good middle ground where you can meet a decent expectation. You have to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, what am I capable of handling on a day-to-day basis? Am I capable of seeing 5 clients? Maybe not. And when I say capable, it's not just, do you have the skills to do it? Do you have the mental capacity to do it? Because you have to change yourself to be somebody else every single time you walk into a new door with a new client.
And if you are in clinic,
you can see 5.
It's hard though, because your brain is switching. Okay, I gotta go. I gotta think about this kid, what they need, what this staff needs, what's going on. It's a lot.
It is. So. It can be. So billable expectation is a great question to ask. And when you ask that, you have to be aware of yourself.
Yep.
Know your limitations.
Yep.
Because if you're like, yeah, I can do 30 hours. Yeah, it doesn't sound like a lot because, full-time is considered like 40, right? Like you hear like 40-hour work weeks and stuff like that. And they say 30, like, yeah, I can do that. Just know that only leaves you 10 hours to do the other stuff that you're supposed to do. And it's not just, oh, I'm going to work these 30 and then I don't have to do anything else. No, that other 10 that is there is so you can do everything else that you're supposed to do. Yeah. If you can.
So next one, does your company have a wait list? This is an interesting question. It's kind of like there are some bigger businesses, private equity, that maybe do prioritize just the money part to everything. With that, they don't really like to relinquish families that they can't serve at the moment because for them that's money going the other way, right? But if they are more so concerned about the family themselves and the child getting what they need, then rather than keeping them on a wait list for 2 years, which is 2 years of quality services they could have been receiving, then they can send them elsewhere or show them a list of other places that can take them, things like that. So it is something that is kind of good to know, like how long do you have a wait list? And if so, how long do you typically keep families on there? I've heard kind of a mix of like, well, we tell them that they can go elsewhere, but they want to stay with us. So it varies like that. Okay, that's the family's choice, right? But if they don't know that they have an option, because unfortunately like a lot of families don't know that. They're like, we've been on a wait list for 3 years and we don't know how to, and it's like, you don't have to be, let them go.
Yeah. I think how long the wait list, I think, is a huge one, or how long it takes for somebody to come off of the wait list. There's been places that, I know of that had a no policy when it came to client, needing services, but never having the staff to be able to staff them. Because I would assume, it's not my role, but I would assume that's because on paper it looks like you have all these clients and it looks like a really good business.
And no means like, oh, they won't turn anyone away.
Yeah, they won't say no to anybody
in the beginning.
Yeah, until you're on that wait list. So I actually service a client that been servicing for like 2.5 years now, maybe 3 actually. At this point, and it was 2 years before they got off a wait list at somebody else, some other place, but we'd already been serving them for 2 years.
And too, I feel like a lot of the times this also aligns with high turnover.
Yeah,
because they're just hiring just to hire, just to fill the spot, just so they can get more clients. And so they're not taking the time to properly train staff, properly vet and see if staff is actually able to do the job. So then there's like, then it's like they've waited 3 years. They've wasted all this time of potential early intervention that they could have had. Now you have a brand new staff that doesn't know what they're doing. And, it's just a hot mess.
It is. And it leads to ABA getting a bad reputation.
Yep.
And you see those, parent, forums and stuff where people just...
They were just sitting on the couch the whole time, staring at my child.
And unfortunately, that's the reputation that ABA is starting to get, but it's not what all ABA is, and as a BCBA or somebody in their master's program looking into like, what am I going to do when I get there? And they're, you're about to be there, having an understanding of that and what that means is a good place, which is why we're doing this. And I think too, the idea that you were just crowned a BCBA, so you just passed your exam, and then you're now in this new position that may be a little overwhelming. You want to make sure that you have the support, the mentorship that you need to be successful.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not comparing us to doctors at all. Way different. But you do see like with doctors, they go to med school, but then after med school, they're not done yet. Like, now they have
there's years and years and years left.
So they also are taken under, others' wings. And then there's another like level that they have to complete. And then some people also after that do fellowships and they keep going. So like, I think in the same way it's like, okay, now you finally got those 4 letters. This is also still just the beginning, because now you still should be mentored in some sort of way and still be poured into in some sort of way and collaborating in some sort of way. Like it shouldn't just be like, okay, go, you're on your own now.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. No, I think all that is important. I think when we are providing a service, we have to take into account the whole child when we get a client, right? We have to take in the type of therapist that they might need, like what kind of energy level. Some staff or some people aren't able to just change like that. So as a BCBA, it's kind of our job to help get people prepared for what it is, but also be able to make those clinical decisions that's going to best suit them.
Yep.
Right. And so if we're taking into the whole child, a whole client, right, what that means is that we are going to be helping them with skills and behavior reduction that are going to help them to be successful in areas that they might be in the community, at school, with us, at home, with parents. And as a BCBA, you want to ask how they work on those sorts of generalization stuff. The answer of like, well, that's just dependent upon the BCBA. Yeah, it is. But you should already know that. But you want to know is how the agency or the place that you're trying to work or potentially work is going to help you to do that, right? So this leads into questions such as like PC. like parent consultation, parent training, parent meeting, whatever you may call it, right? Well, what are the stipulations on that? Are you allowed, if a clinic model is what the agency is offering, but when it's your client and you don't think it's clinically necessary for them to be in a clinic setting, is there an option to work in home if needed to, right? How does that look, right? So these are all like little things that you should ask as well. And
one I didn't think of before I actually asked it was, can the child be present during parent consultation?
Yeah.
You'd be surprised. Apparently, in some places, it's not allowed, which is like, how do you reach generalization where you have the parent be able to implement what we've been working on and give them feedback in the moment to help them? That's one that I'm still like so confused about.
Yeah, I don't think it's appropriate. In just on that alone, us as BCBAs, we've been through school. The textbooks taught us language and vocabulary that told us how we should implement it according to the book, but not how to do it in person. So, and then places like that expect us to be able to then just teach somebody else how to do it without ever being able to show them. Yeah. I mean, we have so many resources, so many research articles that state that, the behavioral skills training, like mixing, didactic with active role plays and modeling and all those go into creating the best results, right? And you're taking that away by not having a client there, so that they can actually get that last piece of the pie, that last piece of generalization. To coach them through doing it with their own child, right? I mean, you can only pretend to be their child so many times before they need their actual child present.
Yep.
Right. So, understanding some of the ways that an agency wants parent consultations and parent meetings to be, done, I think is a really big question. Right. And these kind of go different from like your standard like questions of, case size, what is the philosophy of this agency in terms of how they want things treated. Like those standard questions can still exist. Absolutely. But these kind of like extra points that we've kind of touched on is to give you a better understanding and really challenge the person that's interviewing you. Because if they can't answer the simple questions about their company culture or how they want things to do and they pass you on to somebody else, well, that tells you that the culture probably isn't as strong as they may portray it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, of course, there's the basics too that you should be asking about: pay, benefits, blah, blah, blah.
Training, development, support.
CEUs, maybe
all that stuff.
Just like, that stuff. I think, but also, I think there is a sense of entitlement with some like new coming in BCBAs not understanding how, the billable transfers and things like that. So maybe expecting like to get paid way too much. And then there's also the reverse of that, getting paid way under what they should be paid. I've looked at some district just salaries just to see what it looks like. And there's some that I'm like, oh, wow, okay, that seems like a lot. And then you read the details and it's because it is a lot because you're doing way too much. So there's that whole piece of making sure that it's what you have the capacity to do. Yeah. And then I've seen way too little pay too, where you're still doing a lot. So just making sure that you know what you're getting into, and reading the fine print, because then there's also places that could be nonprofits that maybe don't offer as much, but then it really aligns with what you want to do and what your job looks like. So it's just really important to look at, yes, the pay scale, but also what goes into that and what you're expected to do to kind of see if it makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point. Understanding what it is that you're trying to do. If you're seeking the money or you're trying to seek the impact. I don't think anybody becomes a BCBA because they want to make the big bucks, because there are so many other professions that pay a lot better. But in terms of an impact, being able to be fulfilled in your duties and all that is, I think, what is the huge payoff. and can be so rewarding.
Yeah.
So knowing that, you have to find a place that's going to align with those sorts of beliefs that you have.
Absolutely. Sweet.
So, yeah. So hopefully those are a little helpful, especially those that have just, passed the test and looking for their first ABA agency. You really, really, I can tell you now, want to have a good mentorship type of BCBA at that place, or an agency that is going to mentor you. Because your first year,
like if
it's
you
a
just
big
passed
difference.
your test and you feel like you're going to be teaching all the other BCBAs.
Yeah. Which actually is a good question to ask, is like, how long do BCBAs stay here? Like, how long have they been in the field, and how long have they been at this agency?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's another really good question that just sparked there. Because if it's like, most of our BCBAs are just graduated. Now you've got like, okay, one, how clinically effective is this team being with the kids that they're serving? And this is not to disrespect anybody, because they could have had the best training throughout the process. So they could be amazing. But in terms of how that translates as being now the leader role could be different. So just having a good understanding of that as well. So asking that question can really help you.
Yep. I think that's good.
Yeah. So if you have any other extra questions, just like on the last episode, put them down, and we can touch on them and like get some conversation happening.
Yeah. Because again, we know there's probably other questions.
Yeah. But I think these ones are pretty important.
Yes.
So, all right, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
We will see you next time.
Yeah. See you guys.
Bye.
The salute again.